Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Elizabeth Coe from the National Association of Child Contact Centres.
Hello, I'm Philip Coleman, Service Development Manager from the National Association of Child Contact Centres.
Hello, I'm Rosalind Barton and I'm the Secretary of the charity Match Mothers.
Hello, my name is SJ. I'm the chair of the charity Match Mothers and a sister charity called Back from the Brink that deals with the suicidality of parents apart from their children.
Hello, right, thank you very much. Right, Match Mothers is a charity that's actually last year we had our 40th year anniversary, so we've been around a long time. Basically, we supply support, advice and help to mothers all over the country who are living apart from their children. We are very non-judgmental, so there are many different cases as to why they are apart from their children, and we provide everything we can to make their lives better, and we offer a service for membership which lasts for the year. That's all ongoing all the time. We have phone line which we set up back in 2017, and that works with mothers that we have volunteers primarily who are able to answer the phone and actually understand what these mothers are going through and can provide the help they need.
And my role within Match Mothers is that I provide psychotherapeutic trauma assistance to primarily mothers who are dealing with the non-fatal loss of their children, and how we ensure that they stay mentally strong for them and for their children. And we also occasionally do assist men who are in the same situation and make sure again their mental health stays strong.
Okay, some of the mums that actually phone us on our phone line are either have just been through a court process and have been or given the court order, but the only contact they have is with their children is through a contact centre, and they're unsure about what that's going to involve, what it means, and therefore they ring us to find out any help that we can provide. It's really useful to have the contact centre, your child contact centres, the national authority for it, to speak to get the help on particular areas where there is difficulty with some particular centres that they've been officiated to go to. Then there's our cases where there are problems, and obviously again they come to us for any help they've got. I was actually quite early on in 2017 when our phone lines had first opened. I had a mother that came to us for some help and support. She was based in Exeter. Her husband had moved to Surrey after their divorce, and he had the main residency of the child, and she had only contact was through contact centres. So the courts had ordered that she has contact in the contact centre in Surrey and the contact in Exeter. Unfortunately, the father was not very obliging in going to the Exeter contact centre, so she had to do the Surrey one a lot. She had to pay the money, obviously, when she went to these contact centres, which at the time, in 2017, it was £50 per hour that she saw her son. And she used to go, obviously she was a single mum, she had no job, and therefore money was not ideal, but she managed to borrow money from her friends. Anything she could do, she would do to be able to go for this £50 fine, payment. And she had friends that would drive her to Surrey. It was near Guildford, the centre, and she would go there and have her time there. Unfortunately for her, she also, after the divorce, she got a terminal illness, was recognised in her, and she was very ill. She was still determined to see her son. She was looking okay, even though she had the illness, she was still able to look good. So she wanted to carry on seeing him as much as she could. But it was really hard having to go there and then pay up. She had an unfortunate ordeal on one of her contact centre visits. She was actually seeing her son, and she hadn't been asked before she saw her son to pay the payment. She was having fun with her son, like she would have done, and this gentleman from the centre came over to her and said, "Can I ask for your payment, please? You haven't paid yet." So she ran around in her handbag, took out the £50, passed it over to this man, and after he'd left, her son said to her, "Mum, why do you have to pay to see me? Why does that happen?" Which she found really hard to cope with. She said she didn't know what to say to her son, really. Unfortunately, that only lasted for 3 or 4 visits before, unfortunately, her terminal illness took over, and unfortunately she's not with us anymore. That's unfortunate for her son, I think, in that she had to pay in the first place because she was obviously without a job. She didn't have any financial backing at all. And the fact that the last thing her son's going to remember her for is the contact centre, in the contact centres. That was the case, I'm afraid. We have mothers ringing us also about simply the financial hardship of paying for going to a contact centre when they are without a job. The father was always the breadwinner in the family, therefore she was never found a job because she didn't need to. And suddenly she had to find a job, she was finding it hard, and yet she still had to pay quite a lot of money. So to see that she had 2 boys, actually, the last call I had about that. So it is a factor that I would love to be able to perhaps find financial backing from somewhere that would help these mothers. Unfortunately, as a charity, we can't afford to help financially.
Is this a case that has come through the local authority for some reason, where there are major problems of some kind, or is it a mental health issue? What was the case? What was the issue there?
She had mental health problems, which was one reason she was fighting, still in court, obviously still going to court when she could, because she wanted to prove that she was mentally better. She had a GP had written a letter saying, confirming that she had PTSD syndrome. So that was what had happened, and but the doctor had said that she was clearly much better and she was able to be with her boys, and therefore that was the case. It was the local authority were involved as well.
Because there are occasions when, if the local authority are involved,
Yeah.
or when the court's involved, if they order contact, they will pay for so many sessions of contact. It won't fall to the parent to do so. So there is that. It's up to the lawyer really to make sure that happens,
Right.
for contact to take place.
The problem there is that they were on their own. When they went to court, they didn't have any legal representation at all because they had to do it on their own because they couldn't afford legal help.
Right. Were they not able to get legal aid?
She wasn't. No. His
No.
mother.
Okay. It is a real problem with trying to find the money for supervised contact, but supervised contact is usually, if it's required, they have to have qualified social worker or equivalent. So
Yeah.
of course the hourly rate for a social worker is well, it's what it is. It's quite expensive to have to pay for. So that's what happens for some supervised centres. But if the court have a mind to order it, or I suppose the parent wouldn't actually know to ask that, would they?
No.
But also, if a parent has got a psychiatric social worker or a district nurse or somebody in the community, sometimes they can find or get access to some kind of money, or would be themselves prepared to supervise contact. So it's a question of just kind of exploring what there is around to be able to meet that. I'm sorry to interrupt. Carry on.
No, thank you. That's good.
Yeah, I was just going to say to you, Ross, it's picking up on the last point you made, really, around it would be really amazing to, me and you have spoken about this, and if we could find some way of having some kind of fund or grant funding or something for those parents that are most in need and most vulnerable, that would be a really positive way forward, because much like you, it breaks our heart to hear that children might not be having contact with their parents because of finance being an issue there. And we know that there must be a reality of that happening for some children. The fact that they don't have professional involvement makes it really hard to count those children and to know how many. But just like you, we would really like to find a way of overcoming that in the future.
So I've got a meeting with my local MP, who is brilliant, I've got to say, and he's got a meeting with me on the 10th of August, and it's purely to talk about the funding for that.
Perfect.
That'd be good. I wondered if Sarah had any comment to make about that before we move on.
So my experience that I have found is that the major issue you've got from the point of view of the female mother who blind flee a domestically abusive relationship. However, it does happen. If you're asking a woman to then go into a contact centre where she believes all professionals are hostile because she's had hostility from CAFCAS, social workers, professional psychiatrists who have been ordered to make unfavourable reports on her, she then is being asked to pay for a contact centre with wonderful professionals who, unfortunately, by now she believes through her trauma are also going to be hostile. And that is a huge barrier to her thinking, well, on top of everything, I wasn't the breadwinner, I don't have the money, how am I now going to fund going to a contact centre where potentially notes are going to be made to reduce my contact further and portray me as looking like I have mental health conditions in an arena that I don't necessarily also know. It is highly traumatic for a woman to go to a contact centre in that alien environment where already she has been stripped of every natural behaviour that she should be exhibiting for fear it's going to be used against her. The father has gone to family court and said, I, in the eyes of the law, am an innocent man. She has stopped contact, therefore she's now a child abuser under the category of neglect. The children's residency must immediately be taken away from her and given to my parents, given to me. I know of children that have been given to their fathers during a sexual abuse case against that father, and that's a nasty little loophole. Now you imagine a woman under those circumstances going into a contact centre where she also has to pay for the supervision of those children because she's now a child abuser because she reported the sexual abuse, and have to pay for that situation. It is absolutely impossible for them. Where the children have been taken away, I know of cases where the children have been moved to Scotland, and the contact centres are wonderful places, but again, she's got to fly to Scotland. Where the contact centre has been moved a long way away, one of the biggest problems that our mothers face is the changing of the times without warning. And I'm not saying that that is the contact centre's fault itself, but for whatever reason, somehow the child doesn't turn up. Somehow the children have had to change their visitation time. Somehow the day just doesn't happen to be open on that time, and it wasn't made aware to the mother. I think if you can increase conversation between the visiting parent, whichever gender, and make sure that you remove the hostile parent from the organisation of that, you'd find a great success rate in paying for it. And obviously the cost is an issue. Men who flee relationships usually have a job. Women who flee a relationship usually don't have a job. It is what it is.
Yes, I mean, myself, I had to go to a contact centre in Portsmouth, and they were brilliant because they allowed me, because I had a Subbuteo game, and I've got 2 boys and a girl, and I thought boys would love that. So I didn't advise them beforehand. I just turned up with it, and I said, "Is that okay if we put that in the centre?" And she said, "Yes, of course, just put it in." And the boys loved it and played it, and it was a brilliant thing to have. So yes, I'd say that was a very good centre in Portsmouth. Very good. Look there, listen to me.
Question: do you support people other than mothers, i.e. grandparents?
Grandparents, yes, we do. We've got one of our mums is a grandma, and she stayed with us, and she set up her own grandparents sort of site, and she helps them and she gives them advice. And I don't know much about the grandparent situation, so I don't know anything to advise. So it's useful to be able to pass it on to Debbie, who will sort it out for them. But yes, we do.
So any other category of family do you deal with?
We have. I mean, I know that this parental alienation and things like that, it's always for us mothers. We're obviously the fathers are the problem, but actually there are some cases where the same-sex marriage, where they split up, and one of the women takes the child, and the other mother comes to us and says, "I can't see my child. She's with her," and so we deal with cases like that. But that's not a problem again because we are non-judgmental, which is really useful.
Right, that's good. Okay. Could you tell us a bit about how you are funded?
We are funded as a member. All the people that join us have to. They are suggested to pay the £15 membership every year. That is a minor fact, really, for the funding. but it's there all the time, which is nice, because that is continually, like the rolling stock, it is a continual thing that we have. We also get funding from the lottery, and the lottery have been very helpful to us. So that's been useful. We had a private funder from, I can't think of the pub, it's Green King. They gave us some money. That was a private funder. They found out about us and felt they could help us. So we are doing lots of grants, applying for lots of grants all the time.
Okay, stereotypically, we tend to think of fathers being separated from their children. We think some old research says it's around 92%. But we see through centres that this is also happening to more mothers now than ever has before. Do you know roughly how many mothers are experiencing this separation in terms of statistics, and whether this trend is changing?
I'll leave it to you, Sarah.
I can't give you a figure of how many women get separated from their children compared to men. I do know, going back to Andy Bilson and his research, that there is a huge increase in the amount of children that are separated from parents as a consequence of domestic abuse. And that is done through public court proceedings under the category of emotional abuse. The impact on that does seem to be, having spoken to some solicitors and some whistleblower social services, more targeted at women, removal of children from women. What was the other part of the question that you asked?
Well, it was about...
Has there been an increase?
Yeah.
Yes, well, absolutely. If you look at the research, it is irrefutable that there is a huge increase in the number of children that are being taken from parents through public law proceedings. We know about the increased divorce rate, and therefore private law proceedings. We are aware of the fact that there is an ever increasing number of parents who are separating. The evidence for whether or not more women are being separated from their children comes from things like the Transparency Project, and Mothers Unite is another group who say that there is an exponential increase. And again, because this is an increase that has been reported has been coming from as a result of or at risk of significant emotional harm, and that is centering around women fleeing domestic abusive relationships, it must be, therefore, that more women are experiencing separation from their children as a consequence of that too.
Okay, thank you. So, do you work in partnership with any other organisations? I
know that at the moment, you've heard of this anyway, the domestic bill that a lady called Jan James from the Good Egg Safety Campaign organisation, she's trying to get into the domestic bill that's going through Parliament at the moment, an actual clause that says that parental alienation is an abuse, and she's following that. We are working with her because she comes to us for some support and advice concerning mothers that have been affected by this, and how we can build that strength up. So yeah, we do work with them.
So this is the last question that I've got, but I'm sure you might have other things to say. Tell me about your role with contact centres, because we are wondering what your experience and working relationships are with them.
I would like to. Well, you may have seen our post, Delta. You've seen it, Elizabeth. Our post that we'd like to be in all contact centres, and it's very nice when we get a new mum ring us, and we always ask, how did you find out about us? When they say, oh, we saw your poster in a contact centre, and yes, it's working, they're getting out. And we would like to have more. It would be nice if contact centres perhaps knew about us more than they do. Sure. I don't know. I feel that although I say a few contact centres that I know about have actually got our posters up, which is fantastic. Yeah. So I would like to have more relationship, more knowledge about them, as I would like them to know more about us.
Yeah. Can I just very quickly say then, just thank you so very much to you, the organisers of these child contact centres, because we have never had anything other than praise for everything that you're trying to do to assist mothers and fathers seeing their children in a very difficult situation, which is highly tense and very emotional. We have had nothing but praise for all of your staff and how you've conducted yourselves. And if you wish to know more about any training, maybe trauma-related training that can assist you further in anything, please let us help you with anything that you need to further your understanding of how trauma can affect how some of your clients might be at contact centres with relation.
We may come back to you for another little recording about how trauma affects. We will use and abuse any resource that we can to benefit centres, because the more information they have, the more powerful they are, and the parents who they're working with.
Absolutely.
So
we're all doing the same thing, aren't we? We're all working to ensure that child has the best experience around them. And your staff are already fantastic. I've spoken to a lot of different staff from your centres, and they are aware of the trauma-informed approach. But any other further support we can give, please don't hesitate to ask.
Thank you. So, Phil, have you got anything to say to wrap up?
No, it's been a really interesting speech. It's been great to hear from both Sarah and Ros. And the points that you've raised are really interesting and heartbreaking both at the same time. But it's great to hear both from Ros and Sarah that there are some positive experiences that you were able to share with us and to talk to us about. And I really hope that our centres do have a better awareness of who Match Mothers are and what they're about, because ultimately that will mean that the support gets to the people who most need it. So thank you for your time today, and let's continue to work together, and hopefully between us we can make things a bit better for the people who need us.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye-bye.